Hey, welcome back to the Positive Side Podcast. The host, Jeremy Todd. Glad you are tuning in. And boy, oh boy, special guest today. And I'm super excited. One of my favorite guests of all times, Dave Anderson, is on the show. And one of the things, and this is a true, Dave, this is, I might have mentioned this in the last show, but I want to tell you this, Joe. One of the things I respect most about you is no matter, again, hey, I'm a guy in Indiana. We've never met personally, but we've been on the show a few times. But no matter what, if I send you an email, you always respond back. And I love it. And you don't have to do that because I'm sure you get emails from all over the place and, you're extremely successful, written a million different books, but it's that authenticity. It's the real, you're real and you do the things that you preach. And I just respect that so much about you. So thank you for being Dave Anderson.
I appreciate you saying that. And it's always good to visit with you. Of course, I'll answer your emails.
Well, but you know what I mean? Some guys are like, they get to a certain point and they say, hey, I've made it. And, then you never hear back from them ever again. But it's never been like that with you. And I just love that. It just shows the realness of you. So, Dave, so we talked briefly before the show started, and I'm a GM of a store now, and I absolutely love my team. I came in a situation where culture was devastated. There was no rhyme or reason for anybody doing anything they were doing. There was no processes. There's no accountability. But one of the biggest things, and this is what I need help most, I need to some way, somehow get to my team the sense of urgency. I tried to use it going into hey, it's December, it's end of the year. And now, hey, now it's January. Now we got to get out the gates right. But for whatever reason, it's maybe that I'm not presenting it correctly. Maybe, and again, hey, and I'm going to play this in one of our meetings as well. Maybe they're just not urgent. I think, sometimes in leadership, when you try and make everybody else like you, it's not going to happen. But I wanted you to talk a little bit about maybe some practices, maybe some ideas, or just the concept of why urgency is so important.
Yeah, Jeremy, that's good. And that's a challenge, especially when things are going well. When things are struggling, people are focused and they'll do whatever it takes. And they've got that sense of urgency. But, as prosperity rises, sometimes that urgency falls. I wrote a book called It's Not Rocket Science a few years ago, and it's about execution. And I have a class called How to Create a Culture of Execution. And one of the things we talk about, one thing that really creates urgency, is having expectations that force urgency. Most organizations, they're very heavy on outcome expectations. Here's what I need from you this month. But I'm a big believer in activity expectations, very clear. Out of the 40 things you've got to do today, here are what we call the max acts, maximum activities. Here are the 4 that are most predictive of creating the result you need to create by the end of the month. All right. They're not negotiable. I'm going to train you really well on how to execute them. And I'm going to hold you accountable daily for these activities. We're going to have conversations about them. That's what really accountability is. You're having a conversation about it. If all we're talking about are outcome expectations, that can really take the pressure off of doing anything early in the month, because we have all month to figure it out. We have all month to create X amount of gross or X amount of units. But when we're focused on daily activity expectations, there's more purpose in every day. There's stuff people have to get done now. They know they're going to be held accountable for it tomorrow. If you want more urgency, there's got to be more accountability, but we can't have accountability without clarity. And the type of clarity I'm recommending are clearly defined maximum activities for each member of your team. And they may differ from person to person. People have different strengths. They have different opportunities. The veteran salesperson, for instance, is probably going to have different max acts than the brand new salesperson who doesn't know the product yet. That veteran salesperson has a huge customer base they can call and so forth. But this is where customized coaching comes in. And I work with some athletic teams, and that's one thing I think they do better than we do in business. They're very good at customizing a plan to fit each unique individual on the team. We tend to have the same expectations for everybody across the board. Yeah. So by customizing your coaching approach to the daily max acts that are most predictive of hitting the desired goal, there's going to be more urgency. They know they're going to answer for those things tomorrow. You're going to have a conversation about those things tomorrow. And people say, well, how do I figure out what the max acts are? Well, one of the things I like to do is to kind of work it backward a little bit and say, out of the 40 things you've got to do today, if you could only do 4,
Mhm.
that were most predictive of creating the result you're getting paid to create. Let's figure out what those 4 are. Those are your max acts. You may have to do the 40, but that's 4, those 4, that's where you start. That's what you attack when you come in. If you get off track, that's what you get back to. That's what you do with real excellence and consistency. And so if you want more urgency, we've got to have more daily expectations and daily accountability.
Well, obviously the next transitions from that is obviously we have a management team, and this goes for, service, sales, whatever the case is. But one of the things that, as a new GM, and again, hey, this strict one thing that, in prefaces, I'm vulnerable as anybody out there, right? I mean, I think that's one thing that makes me about as real as you can, because obviously, hey, I am a new GM. One of the areas that I struggle in with is okay, now I'm new GM. Hey, I'm a nice guy. I'm not a big screamer. I'm not a big yeller. But the next level of the accountability is the management level. I have my sales managers, let's just say, for instance, the max acts. We got the 4 different things we want to talk about. Their job is to, and I love also customized coaching, because you're so right. Because what I've done in the past is say, hey, everybody needs to do 20 calls a day. Everybody needs to do 100 videos for the month. It's all for everybody. It's all the same. And I got some guys that are doing 350 up videos. And then I've got some guys that are struggling to hit 50 and 60 videos. So that is, I guess makes so much sense, because I'm trying to hold the guys that aren't going to do 100 videos accountable to hitting 100. That's just not going to happen. Maybe lower their goals, and the guy's going to hit 350, maybe hit him up to 400, and vice versa. How does that transition to the management? Because that's one of the areas I struggle in with is, okay, so now I've got these max acts that for my salespeople. What are some good thoughts and some ideas to transition that into me holding my managers accountable for, I guess, do I have max acts for the managers as well?
Of course, but you have to figure them out for the people that work for them first, because until we know what they're doing, that has to be non-negotiable, the managers aren't going to know what they should be doing to make sure those things are happening. So you always want to start with the frontline people. Here are the most essential things you can do every day. Now, I'm your manager. To help you do those things, these are going to be the essential things I've got to do. I've got to know what's essential for you before I can coach you and use a customized approach and work with you. So we always, hey, if the managers get off track, you got real problems. So the managers need max acts too. And I like dailies, weeklies, and monthlies, Jeremy. So it's like, Jeremy, these are the handful, and I like to limit it to 4. I mean, people say, well, I have 10 priorities. Well, come on now. If everything's important, nothing's important, right? If you have 10 priorities, you don't have a clue as to what a priority is, because that totally destroys the concept of a priority. You may have 10 things that are important. Okay, 10 things that you have to do, but from the good and the great things, what are the best things? What are the things that if you could only do these things, that's what you do? Those are your priorities. So you have to understand how the priorities work. But then we need that for our managers as well. And you got to keep them relevant. Hey, as things change around us, you may need to change the max acts. You may need a different set of max acts in the winter than you do in the summer. And so it's all about keeping them relevant. You got to keep the game plan relevant, just like that coach on the sideline. But accountability is just really, to me, and we have a 2-day class on accountability here. And one of the things I really try to stress, we hear the word accountability and people, they get a little nervous. They think you're going to get written up or you're going to get fired or whatever. To me, the best consequence is a conversation. We have to at least talk about it when it's not getting done. Okay, I have to talk about, remember what the expectation was. Here's what you did. That's not satisfactory. Let's make sure you know how to hit that expectation, and that you also know I'm going to expect it that way from here on out. Now, there does come a time when the conversations are over and there have to be more severe consequences, but most people, they don't want to hear it day after day after day. And if you'll just have a conversation with them, you don't have to take out your high and mighty accountability voice, and I like what you said. You're not a yeller, you're not a screamer. You shouldn't be, because that just distracts from the message. I see these guys, they cannot control their emotions, and they get personal, they get sarcastic, they do it in public, they get profane, they bring up the last 10 things somebody does, and all that does is take the focus away from the issue we're trying to fix now.
Yeah.
And if you look at it as having a conversation, conversations are respectful. They're more likely to get through. All right. And so I would bring that guy aside and say, come here for just a minute. What you just did with that customer, that's not how we do it here. All right. You just violated these 2 values. And if everybody does what you just did, we don't have a prayer of reaching our goal this month. I always like to tie it into the goal, tie the behavior into the goal. So let me show you again how to handle that situation. I'll expect you to do it that way from here on out. We good? We on the same page? Okay, do better. That's a conversation. And it's respectful. I didn't get sarcastic. I didn't get personal. I didn't cuss at them. I didn't raise my voice. It's a lot more likely to get through. We need to do more of that. People need that feedback. That's the best form of accountability, is having conversations with people when they're not doing what's right. And the longer you wait to do it, the less it means. So you got to stay on top of it. You've got to get there quickly, which is why I love daily activity expectations. You've got the basis for a daily conversation. You're talking about this stuff every day.
Yeah.
If you look at most sales departments, they hold their salesperson accountable once a month. At the end of the month, if they hit their number, they didn't, once a month. And sometimes they're not even doing that. Sometimes it's like 4 months. It's like the guy hasn't even had a conversation. But if you're having these conversations daily, when people get off track, you correct it faster. And when they're doing the right thing, they hear about it more often, and they're more likely to keep doing the right thing.
You know, two things I pull out of that. First thing that pops in my head is, number one, I need to have my own personal or my own max acts for my departments as well. So instead of trying to do everything for everybody, limit it to 4 important things: parts, service, sales, finance, whatever that case is. But I need to do a better job for myself managing it. That would allow me to manage each department a little bit more efficient. And the other thing I want to bring up is you're exactly right. When you had these little conversations, what I found recently in the last couple months, the people that are not going to follow, I don't have to fire these guys. They end up finding their own ways out. They just disappear one day. What happened to so-and-so? Well, he decided to go somewhere else. I'm like, oh, okay, great. That's awesome. Right. I don't have less paperwork for me. And hey, I wish them nothing but the best. So, but you're exactly right. That yelling and screaming thing is way, way, way gone. Dave, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show is I want to talk to you about your new book, Intentional Mindset. Now, again, I've read all your books, and now I'm listening again for the second time for Intentional Mindset. There's so many things in there. And what I love about the book, and, Dave, sorry, I'm not going to tell everybody to buy the book in the hand, which you should. Okay, you should. But for me, the audio version is the best. I love that you read it. But what I love about it is I have a 15-minute drive to work, and I get these bullet points out of there where I can take that and transition my day. And I'm going to rapid fire you. Well, I guess let's back up a second. First of all, why write the book, and tell us a little bit about it. And then I'm going to get in some of these big bullets for you.
Well, it's my 15th book, and I had written 13 books on skills, on, accountability, on sales, on leadership, on hiring, recruiting. And then when I started working with athletic teams a few years ago, it occurred to me, that mindset is such a huge deal. I always knew it was important, but when I started to see these guys with all the talent, all the skills, all the experience that still weren't using it because their thinking wasn't right, I started to evaluate the past books I'd written. And I thought, people can know all that stuff that I'm talking about in those other 13 books, but if their thinking isn't right, if they're not intentionally improving their mindset, they're not going to use it. That having the right mindset is what activates your talent, your knowledge, your experience, your skills. And so the first book I wrote on mindset was a book called Unstoppable, and it did really well. And it talked about 4 types of performers in the workplace: undertaker, caretaker, playmaker, and game changer. And the biggest difference between them wasn't their experience, wasn't their skills. It was how they chose to think. And it did really well. And so then I took it to another level and wrote Intentional Mindset, which is my second book now on mindset. And that was the reason. It's like, this is the missing link. We see people, they've had 20 years experience. They're lazy. They have more talent than anyone you could just imagine, and they don't use it. They have all these skills. They know 30 ways to close a deal. They got a lousy attitude.
Yeah.
And it all goes back to how they choose to think. And so intentional means on purpose. You can't leave your mindset up for grabs. You have to do some things on purpose to build your mindset. Just like you're trying to get your body in shape, right? You got to do some intentional things. There's some things you got to start doing. There's some things you got to stop doing, and you got to do them consistently. Why would we think a mind is any different? All right. And so just trying to let people know that, listen, you've got to work on this. I like it in the morning. I like what you do. You listen to it on the way to work.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing I would do is listen to the news or sports talk radio on the way to work in the morning and let the news, let the media drop its drawers and take a dump on my mindset. When I'm getting ready to get into the arena, when I have to be effective and energized and focused, because if I'm listening to garbage on the way to work, when I get to work, what am I going to talk about?
No, garbage.
Garbage. Hey, Jeremy, did you hear what I heard on the news?
Yeah.
Did you hear about the new variant, the new infection rate, the new whatever? And now we're making everybody unproductive. So what you're doing is intentional. You're on purpose. You're getting your mind right, just like that athlete before they're in the arena. By the time you show up in the arena, it's too late. If your mind isn't right, you're going to get knocked out.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we got to get ready for work before we're at work. And I love using that in the commute time. I do it at home. I have a quiet hour when I get up. I have a rigorous mindset routine, things I read, affirmations I repeat, devotionals I subscribe to. I mean, I haven't subscribed to a newspaper since 1997. All right, I go to one social media feed and I look at what's trending in the world. And if I don't want to be ignorant of world events, and I'm not. And if I'm interested on it, I'll click on it. Usually I'm not. And so it's like, I got to be productive today. And so intentional is about making time for it, carving out time. I ask people in my seminars, I said, how many of you would agree that having the right mindset is more influential to success than skills, knowledge, talent, or experience?
100%.
Everybody's hand goes up.
Yeah.
They agree. I got to have the right mindset. And I tell them, I said, I agree with you. Now, since we're on the same page, let me ask you this question. How much time do you spend every day intentionally working on yours? And that's where you get the blank deer caught in the headlights look, because they just realized, they admitted it's a really big deal, but I'm not doing anything about it. I'm leaving it up for grabs, and it's going to get shaped in the wrong direction. So that's why I wrote it, to help people take all that experience they do have and the talent they are gifted with and the skills and the knowledge they have acquired and developed, and actually be able to utilize it with greater excellence and more consistency by having their thinking right every single day. And it also improves every other area of your life. I mean, you're taking that same mindset to home with your family. You're taking it to the gym. You see some people, they go to the gym and they don't even work out. It's like, I went to the gym today. Yeah, but you didn't do anything. You just kind of posed and walked around and looked at other people. It's like, you got to have that right thinking in every aspect of your life that you're in. And so you're in church, you got to be locked in. All right. You're in a class, you're in a seminar, you need to have that mindset that locks in. You're with your family, you need to be there. You need to lock in. And so this mental game is huge in all areas of our life.
The owner of our company named Ryan Rorman, Ryan's great. He was talking about in one of our last meetings about the infinite pursuit. It never ends. I mean, you have got to continue to show up every single day. And there's no, I mean, for mindset, there's no days off. I mean, you've got to be intentional about your day to get the most productivity out of it. And it's so true. And I get so frustrated with the team. I'm like, what did you do this morning on your way into work? I didn't do anything. I'm like, well, you got to do something. So I try and start every day off, at least at our meetings, with something we watch on a YouTube, some kind of a mental, motivation, inspiration. It's so important. And I think it's rubbing off, but I don't know. But again, that's why I love your book, being intentional about it. We can talk about it all day long. And I always say, hey, when you walk out of our conference room, it almost seems like there's a force field. Like as soon as you walk out, it wipes everything out that you learned. And then you start going back to default Indiana, default California, and you just start doing the same thing again. But you've got to be intentional about these. So I'm going to fire some big bullets right out of the book for you, Dave. And I'd love for you to just talk to him about it a little bit. Now, this is straight from your Twitter feed. And I'm not a huge Twitter fan, but one of the reasons I think I follow just a couple hundred people, but you're one of the main guys I follow specifically for this. Okay. Big bullet, Dave Anderson. Oftentimes, nothing changes until you change something. And that something often results from feedback. I love that. Talk a little bit about that.
Feedback is a gift. Feedback talks about blind spots that we have. Feedback shows us ways to get better. And when I'm looking at an athlete or I'm looking at someone in the workplace, I need to know, are you coachable? Are you coachable? Because if you keep doing what you've always done, nothing's going to change for you. Nothing changes for you until something changes about you. Okay. A lot of people are waiting for the things around them to change, but they're not changing anything about themselves. See, when you start changing, there's two things you need to change. When you change how you think and when you change what you do, and how you think determines what you do. So when you change how you think and you change what you do, then you can start changing things. All right, now you can start happening to things, and things are less likely to happen to you. You can become the boxer, not the bag. Some of us are just the bag absorbing blows all day. But sometimes, Jeremy, we're too close to the issue. We need that feedback. I mean, Ken Blanchard called feedback the breakfast of champions, and feedback helps us get better. It's information. It's not an assault. It's not an insult. Even if it's delivered in a lousy way, you still get to choose how you respond to it. And I ask people, are you coachable? Well, I think I'm coachable. Well, how do you take feedback? And so many people, when you give them feedback, they want to argue with you. They're more interested in being right than getting better. And so if you want to change, you've got to be open to feedback, because feedback will show you opportunities. It will show you things you're not seeing, things you're too close to. And then when you change, you can start changing stuff.
I just had a meeting last week about that, about having one-on-ones with our team, with their managers. And I really pushed towards the manager to make sure that you ask the salesperson, the service advisor, the technician, whoever the person is, the counterparts person or parts manager. Not only as a manager, we're looking for feedback, but we're looking for, obviously having these one-on-ones to make them better. But more importantly, I told each one of these guys to make sure you ask them for feedback for you, because if we're going to grow together as a team, as a manager, you need to check your ego at the door, because if they see you checking your ego at the door and having those conversations, they're going to be a lot more open to you to talk about the same exact things. If there is something to struggle with, they're worried about, they'll know they can go to you and have those conversations. But feedback has to be a two-way street. It can't just be, here's feedback for you, salesperson or service advisor. It's, what do I need to do better as a leader? And I think that, again, breaks down barriers, but also as a leader, we need to swallow our ego a little bit and step back and say, hey, maybe there's truth. There's probably truth in that. How do I take that and use that to my advantage and get better? Or like you said, you get all defensive and pissed off and say, no, you're wrong. I can't believe they said that. There's probably truth there. And we need to be, as leaders, we need to show that vulnerability to make sure that it's a two-way street on both sides. So
I love what you said. I love, because leaders do need to get it from their people. It's not just something you give down. It's something you take up. And, you see a lot of people, Jeremy, like if you give me feedback, I can be one of those guys that I agree with it. Yeah, Jeremy, you're right. Thanks for pointing that out. And then I never change anything. It's okay, I just got you off my back. Or I could be the guy that you give me feedback and I receive it well, and I actually change something. Or I could even be a better guy. I could be the guy that asks for it.
Yeah.
Okay. I could be the leader that says, you know what can I do to help you become more successful? What do I do around here that's a distraction you wish I could stop? What do you need from me to help bring this team closer together? And that's graduate level coachability. When we're actually asking for it, we're not just open to it, which is good, but we're actually asking for it.
So important. And it kind of leads me to this next one, this big bullet. And I love this one as well. Mentally tough people consider disappointments as engagement, not defeat. And this has come up many times recently within the store. And I talked to these guys about it. How do we look at this? How do we look at this big disappointment, big conversation, customers mad at us? That is not a defeat. We need to take the 5,000-foot view and learn from that. And how do we get better? How do we, what could I have done better in that situation? And then go back to having that feedback. This thing went terribly, terribly wrong. How did that happen? And then how can we make that a win, not a defeat? Talk a little bit about that.
Well, there you go. And this is where mindset's going to make the difference. Let's look at two salespeople. Let's say they both are working a deal. They both lose the deal, and they both respond to it very differently. You've got the one guy that loses the deal. He's disappointed. He's had a setback. He's invested a lot of time in it. Here's how he chooses to handle the deal. He calls an emergency meeting of all the other losers and whiners in the department and talks about what a tough month it's going to be.
Yeah.
Okay. Boy, let me tell you the raw deal I got. The other guy, same thing happened to him. Okay. And his thinking is a little different. He's doing what you said. He's running the game film. Just like an athlete, he's running the game film of that deal.
Yeah.
And he's looking for, what did I miss? What could I have done better? Because this didn't happen to me. I'm going to make it happen for me. I'm going to use the lesson from this lost deal, and I'm going to make 5 more deals with it. And I'll probably do it this month, but I've got to be looking at it that way. All right. Did I greet the whole buying party? Did I ask enough questions? Did I make wrong assumptions?
Exactly.
Did I not customize my approach to fit the sales, to fit the customer? Did I just try to fit the customer into my approach? And so, but these people can have the same amount of training, they can have the same amount of experience, and they can be very similar in other ways, but how they choose to handle that disappointment is going to be dependent on how you think. That's why you got to work on how you think every day. You take what happens to you and you make it happen for you. You find a way to use it. You find a way to make it pay. Failure and disappointments can make us so much better.
Oh, yeah.
You will learn more from that than successes. Success can blind us to the lessons because we just start to trust in our success instead of the skills that created it. But when we have disappointment, we're forced to look in the mirror and look for ways to get better. We always learn more from losses than from wins.
100%. And when I see these things on sales floors or with different teams, that tells me directly who the leader is. Because if someone can do that in this terrible situation, and again, no disrespect, but if they're selling cars and they want to move up to a higher position, that's the kind of things that I look for, to saying, hey, yeah, you didn't get it, it didn't go your way, but how'd you react to that situation? Because when the higher you go up in the company, the worse things are going to happen to you. So you've got to be able to make sure you transition that into growth opportunity. And I absolutely love it. We're going to, and I've held you for probably too long. I'm going to end it on this one here. I love this big bullet. Again, all about mindset. Doing less than you can eventually makes you less than you are. That, my friend, is so powerful. And I hear it all the time. Not as much I did, but I hear it a lot. That's not my job. Or they don't give 100%, or I just did this. I made a video for someone that wasn't that good, but I just thought I'll go ahead and send it. Or I sent this email. I just wanted to respond back. There's no fire or like, you also say, and I think it's in the book too. The way you do one thing is the way you do everything. It's so true. And it all boils back down to mindset. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, that's a principle. And people say it a lot, but they don't live it. How you do anything is how you do everything. Okay. But they're not living it. You look at the inside of their car and it looks like somebody vomited up a rummage sale. Okay.
Exactly.
Now what happens is that's a part of their life most people aren't seeing. You go home and you look at their closet. You look at their garage, you look at the areas of their life that most people are not looking at. You look at their back and side yard because they might plant a couple flowers to get the neighbors off their back in the front yard. The areas of our life that most people don't see reflect our true standards. We're not doing it for anybody else. You're doing it for yourself. If you get out of bed in the morning, you don't make the bed, that's what you're about. You're already cutting corners. You're not committed to excellence. Nobody's going to know you did that really, but you know it. You walk past the trash rather than pick it up. That's what you're about. You leave your shopping cart out in the middle of the parking lot rather than going back and racking it. That's what you're all about. And so doing less than you can makes you less than you are. Here's why. You only have one conscience. You have one conscience. And when you train your conscience to accept less than your best in one area of your life, that same conscience carries over into other areas that you see as more important and diminishes your performance there too. You're teaching yourself it's okay to excuse less than your best. And that starts to become your nature instead of having your nature be, I'm going to give my all every single time. I may not have a nice car, but you know what? It's going to be clean. I may not have great, stylish clothes to wear, but they're going to be pressed and my shoes are going to be shined. I may live in a small apartment, but it's going to be just filled with excellence as far as orderliness. And there's not dishes in the sink and there's not trash, heaping out of the cans. And I was asking a young athlete I was working with, I gave him a scholarship to my mindset program that I work with the professionals on. And he qualified out of 9 different athletes. And we were talking about this very topic. And I said, Paul, do you make your bed in the morning? And he said, no. I said, if I came over to visit you, would you make your bed? He said, well, yeah. I said, why would you have higher standards for someone else than you have for yourself? I said, have you heard of the phrase, how you do anything is how you do everything? He says, yeah. I said, so what you just told me is you're not giving your all on the court. Because if that's how you're doing it, where people aren't looking, that same conscience is carrying over, and you may be putting on a good show, but you're not doing all you can. When you do less than you can, you lose part of yourself. You become less than you are. So it all matters. People say this is just being anal. inside of the car, closet, garage. No. It's about standards. Standards are not anal. Standards are who you decide you want to be, the type of person you want to become, to where you don't even have to think about it. It just becomes part of your nature. Excellence is part of your nature. Now, it's not a sometimes thing. It's not a switch that you flip at the end of the month because you're behind on the board. It's a person that you bring at the first of the month, the second, the third, those Tuesdays, those Wednesdays, those mundane Thursdays, because that's the person you've chosen to be. You've trained your conscience to expect nothing but your best in all these areas, and it's going to translate into the work area as well. It all matters.
Man, bro, I absolutely love that. Dave Anderson, you are the best. I know your time is so valuable. I cannot thank you enough. I look forward to our conversations. They are game changers. They're the most popular podcasts I have, the most popular YouTube videos I have. I share them out to everybody. Obviously the Don Air boys, they're going to be watching this video for sure. I promise you that. They're all going to be watching it. My team will watch it, and I'm going to send it out to everybody else I know. But not only that, put it on my personal, because yes, we've talked a lot about a car business, but most of it wasn't. It was about mindset and how you're going to get better. So no matter what field you're in, no matter what kind of sales you're in, everything that you've talked about today is so true and so on point. I got a ton out of this, and selfishly, my friend, I just like having you on my show. For me, I mean, it is what it is. Hell, it's my show. I can do that, right? What the hell? But, I talked to your good buddy, Ryan, the Killer Coda. I want to end this on this. We all have things that we love to talk about and collect. Now, Ryan told me that you have a certain interest on different types of bourbons. Tell me a little bit of my favorite bourbon. I'm not a huge bourbon, but I love Buffalo Trace. I love the story behind Buffalo Trace. It's not the most expensive. It's not the cheapest, but it's been around for the longest. And I like consistency. Tell me a little bit about your collection of bourbon.
I have an extensive collection of bourbon. I enjoy a good bourbon. I enjoy a good cigar. I enjoy a good bourbon with a cigar. And my favorite is I like Buffalo Trace. I like Willet. I really like Pappy Van Winkle. And I have the whole lineup. I have the 10, the 12, the 15, the 20, the 23-year, and the 13-year rye, which is really hard to find. Unfortunately, they kind of did some stuff on a couple TV shows that were really popular, and now everybody went out and bought it and drove the prices way up. I wouldn't want to have to replace some of these bottles right now. But again, to me, it's about excellence. I think the more you if you can afford it, the more you surround yourself with excellence, the more excellence becomes your standard, and the less likely you are to settle for what's less than excellent. Okay, so I enjoy a good bourbon. I enjoy a good cigar. I enjoy a good meal. I enjoy those things, but Pappy is special. I don't share it with everybody because like even my son-in-law, I mean, he might get it once a year at Christmas, so and I'll do the pour. It'll be about like that. My pour is okay. His pour is about like that. But it's it's just one of those fine, refined things. You don't have it every day. I drink a lot of other different bourbons during the course of a month, but for those special occasions when you just feel really good and want to do something just with complete excellence, I break out the Pappy. And I love to share it with friends when they come to visit. We have a lot of friends that come and stay with us in LA. They call our house the Chilla Villa because you just come out and it's just all chill and it's good conversation and good bourbon and good cigars. And to me, those are some of the best things in life.
Well, hey, my friend, I will commit to you in 2022. I'll fly out there myself and I'll come out and hang out. And I would love to sip some Pappy with you. That would be awesome.
We'll do that.
As long as you'll have me, I'm coming at some point this year, and I'm going to plan my schedule out here soon. I've got a vacation in April with the kids, and maybe around my birthday, maybe around July, maybe I might sneak out of here for a little bit.
We'd love that, Jeremy. We have a lot of seminars right here in our training center, and what we do after the second day or sometimes after the first day, it's totally voluntary, but we have a little celebratory bourbon toast, and we have a few different bourbons out for people to try. And it's not usually what you do at a seminar, but it's my training center. I do it my way.
Do what the hell you want to do.
We work hard during the day, and we have a little enjoyment after the class.
Dave, where can everybody find you?
You can find me at LearnToLead.com, our website. If you spell it out just like it sounds, LearnToLead.com. It has all about us, our lineup of classes. I think we've got 13 classes scheduled at our own training center here. They're intimate classes. The Don Ayers people have been out here a lot, and they enjoy the bourbons as well. They're a great group, but we try to limit the size so everybody has an intimate experience. Usually there's no more than 20 people. It's an elite experience. We feed you just fantastic food and amenities, all throughout. And of course, what we believe is life-changing information. So I hope some folks will come out and see us.
Well, I will, my friend. 2022, Jeremy Todd and Dave Anderson hanging out together. Boy, that'll be a lot of fun, my friend.
That'd be fun.
I'm going to throw one little extra benefit. If I can come out there and you can have me on your show, that would mean the world, and it'd be a lot of fun.
We'll do that. We've got our studio right here in the training center and in our corporate office, and I haven't had a live guest in a while. We'll do that.
That would be great.
We'll make that happen.
Well, I appreciate that, Dave. And again, appreciate your time. And for everybody out there listening to this podcast, again, it's important that I have them on the show for me, my team, my friends, my family, but this should be important to you. You should share this video, subscribe, find Dave. I mean, reach out to him. Like I said earlier in the beginning of the podcast, he'll reach back out. I mean, he's again, open-minded, authentic, real. That's what I respect most about him. And that's why I love having Dave on the show. And I appreciate you, Dave. Go find him. And hey, if I could be any help, email me, jeremy@jeremytodd.com. Make sure you follow me everywhere. I'm on Pandora, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, you name it. I'm out there. Check me out on YouTube as well as Facebook and Instagram. I say it in every single episode. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. You've got greatness within. Like always, this is the positive side.